What's up? Stream setup is ready for development sheet, right? I have this face cam looking absolutely good. I got this dev thing with both my monitors set up. Yes, I got all my music playing on Opera so it doesn't come into the stream. Kind of epic.
And then you track.
This is a course that I'm trying to do. It's called Fast AI and it's pretty damn interesting. So yeah, just wanted to stream myself learning. I think I was around this part.
Have a cell at the bottom, I just run and export it. How does it know to call it app.py? That's because there's a special thing at the top, default export, which says what Python file name to create. So that's just a little trick that I use. So now we've got an app.py. We need to upload this to Gradio. How do we do that? You just push it to get. So just a little trick that I use. I just run and and I wrote hash pipe export at the top of each cell that contains information that I'm going to need in my final script. And then, so there are the steps, right? And then at the very bottom here, I've imported something called notebook to script from nbdev. And if I run that and pass in the name of the script would be to copy and paste that. Now this model I just retrained today, now I was sure it's a cat. So there you go. I think I used a slightly different training schedule or something, or I gave it an extra epoch. Anyway, so that's a dog cat, but apparently it's a cat. I guess it is a cat. Now that's actually running, so you actually have to click the stop button to stop it running, so otherwise you won't be able to do anything else in your notebook. Okay. So now we have to turn that into a Python script. So one way to turn it into a Python script would be to copy and paste into a Python script all the things that you need. Would be to copy and paste into a Python script all the parts of this that you need. So for example, we wouldn't need this, it's just to check something out. We wouldn't need this, it was just experimenting. This was just experimenting. We'd need this, right? So what I did is I went through and I wrote hash pipe export at the top of each cell that contains information that I'm going to need in my final script. And then, so there are the steps, right? And then at the very bottom here, I've imported something called notebook to script from nbdev. And if I run that and pass in the name of this notebook, it creates a file for me called app.py containing that script. So this is a nice easy way to, like, when you're working with stuff that's expecting a script and not a notebook, like Hugging Face Spaces does. It's fine to just copy and paste into a text file if you like, but I really like this way of doing it because that way I can do all of my experimentation in a notebook. And when I'm done, I just have a cell at the bottom, I just run and export it. How does it know to call it app.py? That's because there's a special thing at the top, default export, which says what Python file name to create. So that's just a little trick that I use. And upload. You can go ahead and you can either. Yeah, you have, one of the might have seen kind of like two separate machines. Let's do so. Now take you through how we use a model that we've trained for that model. We need. Okay, so we've got a notebook. So we've got a notebook for that. Okay, so we've got a notebook for that.
I guess they didn't give this notebook in the lesson.
And so I'm going to take you through how we use a model that we've trained to make predictions. There's a few funny things with hash pipe, which I'll explain in a moment. Just ignore those for now. So we import copy. So for example, I just grabbed, as you might have seen in my Explorer, from that. All we do is, instead of training a learner, we use load learner. We pass in the file name that we saved, and that returns a learner. This learner is exactly the same as been training a learner. A learner you get when, so at the end of that, there's a learner that's been trained, called a pickle file, which is a Python kind of froze it in time, something called a pickle. So one of the things that it's basically instant. In fact, we can see how long it took. If you in Jupyter, things that start with percent are called magics. They're special Jupyter things. So for example, there's a thing to see how long something takes, not a cat. So it's returning two things. This is a cat as a string, and the probability. So we now want a function that it's going to call. So here's our function. So we're going to call predict, and that returns, as we said, three things. The prediction is a string, the index of that, and the probabilities of whether it's a dog or a cat. And what Gradio wants is, it wants to get back a dictionary containing each of the possible categories, which in this case is dog or cat, and the probability of each one. So if you haven't done much Python before, a dict of a zip may be something you haven't seen. Very handy little idiom, well worth checking out. Ditto if you haven't seen map before. Anyway, here it is. One slightly annoying thing about Gradio at the moment is that it doesn't handle PyTorch tensors. the data. So I'm going to tell you something that you might find. And then anybody can, at the end here, your notebook, if you want to, and then anybody can read the reader view, as you see. And so here, and you can see it shows you what happened when I ran it. And you can then, and I that you used in exactly the same. One of the
So one thing on GPT isn't working, you can just like edit, go back, and it'll start. It'll start working in a while. See? I see. कौन है? कौन है? Oh my god, I'm struggling. So taking notes is kind of a long process, but well, it kind of works.
object, and that returns, as we said, three things. The prediction is a string, the index of that, and the probabilities of whether it's a dog or a cat. And what Gradio wants is it wants to get back a dictionary containing each of the possible categories, which in this case is dog or cat, and the probability of each one. So if you haven't done much Python before, a dict of a zip may be something you haven't seen. Very handy little idiom, well worth checking out. Ditto if you haven't seen map before. Anyway, here it is. One slightly annoying thing about Gradio at the moment is that it doesn't handle PyTorch tensors. You can see here PyTorch is not returning normal numbers, it's returning tensors. It's not even returning NumPy arrays. In fact, Gradio can't handle NumPy either, so we have to change everything just to a normal float. So that's all that this is doing, is changing each one to a float. So for example, if I now call classify image with our doggy image, we get back a dictionary of a dog. Yes, definitely. Cat, definitely not. So now we've got all that, we can go ahead and create a Gradio interface. So Gradio interface is something where we say, well, what function do you call to get the output? What is the input? In this case, we say, oh, the input is an image. And so check out the Gradio docs. It can be all kinds of things. Things like a webcam picture or a text or all kinds of things. Give it a shape that it's going to put it into. The output's just going to be a label. So we're going to create a very, very simple interface. And we can also provide some examples. And so there's a dog, a cat, and a dunno, which I'll tell you about in a moment, which you'll see here. There's a dog and a cat and a dunno. So once I launch it, it says, okay, that's now running on this URL. So if I open that up, you can see now we have just like so once I launch it, it says, okay, that's now running on this URL. So if I open that up, you can see now we have, just like Suvash, we have our own, not yet in production, but running on our own box, classifier. So let's check. Dog. So you can click and upload one or just choose the examples.
I see, so you have to give it the function, the input, the output, but if the input is something like an image and the output is something like a label, you have to define it beforehand using other functions from, other classes from the Gradio library. Interesting. Okay, that's it for today. See you guys.